While both WWE and AEW have put on some absolutely amazing events in the past, the truth is, the perfect wrestling show doesn't exist. No matter how good a show is, there's always going to be one or two things about it that are going to drag it down and impact the way that people remember it. But still, it is possible for a show to be exactly what that wrestling company needs in that moment, thus cementing itself, at least for that speck of time, as perfect. And I believe that AEW All Out 2023 is one of those shows. In this video, I'm going to talk about why that is, what leading up to the show meant for the show, and the way that people perceived it, and why the wrestling on that show left everybody in that building and watching at home in awe of what they saw. I'm Omer Q for Real Take Wrestling. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Okay, let's talk about it. All Out 2023, the show that virtually had no build. While there were storylines going into the pay-per-view, one of the biggest criticisms fans had about the show was that there wasn't that much of a build. Of course, this show came 1 week, 7 days after All In 2023, one of the biggest shows of all time, the biggest ticketed crowd of all time with over 81,000 in attendance. And All Out was kind of seeming to be one of those shows that you could miss. It didn't have that must-watch feel that All In did. It didn't have the pageantry, the historic value of being the wrestling show like All In London was, where you broke the wrestling attendance record for ticketed fans. No, instead it was a card full of matches that people generally wanted to see, but Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley, you had Ricky Starks versus, at that time, TBD. We didn't know who it was going to be because of CM Punk being suspended at that point. This is before we found out he was fired. By the way, we'll get into that because this also plays a critical role into why this show is perfect. But the match card overall left people wanting. It didn't have that same feel of a big card like All In London did, like past All Outs have, like past AEW pay-per-views have. No, instead, it just seemed to be the leftovers of All In and just doing a show for the sake of doing the show. And where I think that all changed was with what happened with CM Punk. Of course, at this point, we all know what happened. CM Punk and Jack Perry got into an altercation at All In London backstage before Punk's match with Samoa Joe, and at some point, according to multiple reports, CM Punk lunged at Tony Khan after the altercation with Jungle Boy, and eventually Tony Khan was forced into a position where he felt like he had to fire and terminate the contract of CM Punk just 24 hours before AEW All Out in Chicago. And not only did this add uncertainty to the actual card, because it's been reported by Fightful since that the original plan for All Out was supposed to be Ricky Starks versus CM Punk for the Real World Championship in the main event. However, now that's thrown away just 24 hours before the show. And now they have to find a way to make all of this make sense. The card, the show in Chicago, CM Punk's hometown, that was built around him, that was supposed to be his show, is suddenly without a main event, is suddenly without a big draw, is suddenly even more missable than it originally was. But one thing that I don't think a lot of people counted on or factored into this was the fact that all of those wrestlers, the 20 plus wrestlers that were on that card, given the fact that everyone thought that this was a missable show, given the fact that everyone believed that given the CM Punk news that this show was going to be overshadowed by CM Punk's firing and all the drama that has been associated with CM Punk during his tenure in All Elite Wrestling. What we didn't count on was that those wrestlers would go out there more motivated than ever. which is exactly what happened. From the top to the bottom, every single person on that card worked their ass off. They worked like this was their last match. Let's talk about Bryan Danielson versus Ricky Starks, for example. Bryan Danielson versus Ricky Starks is a match that was made 24 hours before the pay-per-view. And somehow, some way, that match may have won Match of the Year, at least in my book, because it was one of the hardest hitting, just insane wrestling matches to watch, because they were beating the crap out of each other in that strap match. And one thing that really stuck out to me watching that match, and watching a lot of the matches throughout the card, but especially Bryan versus Starks, was the fact that even though this match didn't necessarily have a big build going into it, there was a story that was told with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, but there wasn't a big build, right? Even though that was the case, they told a story during this match. They told a story, the back and forth between these two. Bryan Danielson being unable to use his injured arm. Bryan Danielson focusing in on the left arm of Ricky Starks throughout the entire match, something that I believe was lost on a lot of people who were watching live. The fact of the matter is, they went out there and they put on one of the best performances I've seen this entire year. And then you talk about Miro versus Will Hobbs, a match that I think is inarguable. This was the longest running story leading into this show. And these two went out there. We expected a big hoss battle, and they delivered. They gave us meat, slapping meat, to quote Big E, and it was insane. I know getting to witness that live in person was absolutely just nuts, because we were all chanting meat, meat, meat throughout the entire thing. Every move, people were chanting meat. The crowd was red hot. They were red hot for this. They were red hot for Kenny Omega. One of the big concerns going into this event was not only is how is the crowd going to react with the whole CM Punk firing, how are they going to react with Tony Khan and all that, how are they going to react to the Elite, Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, and the Young Bucks. And at least for the first two, Hangman Page got one of the loudest reactions of the night. He was over. I'd argue that 95% of the people in that building were on their feet, cheering, chanting cowboy shit when Hangman Page came out. Then you look over at Kenny Omega, the wrestling god that is Kenny Omega. When he came out, he got a monster pop. His match with Takeshita told the story. Again, the story of Takeshita and Kenny Omega was told in this match in a beautiful way, because Kenny Omega dominated a good chunk of this match. Takeshita got his heel shtick in, but he dominated a good chunk of this match. And it didn't take a screwdriver. It didn't take Don Callis interfering to beat Kenny Omega. No, it took Takeshita finally, one-on-one, clean, beating Kenny Omega. And now coming out of this pay-per-view, not only did they have an amazing match, but we also have Konosuke Takeshita, the guy who can say that he has pinned Kenny Omega twice in the matter of 7 days. Something that I don't believe anyone else outside of maybe the first 6 people Kenny Omega ever wrestled in Canada can say. That is insane to think about. It's something that we all thought was unimaginable, but now Konosuke Takeshita went from unimaginable to ungoddamn deniable after this performance. I mean, he proved that he is one of the best young wrestlers in the game today. And again, you can go back to Ricky Starks as well. Ricky Starks went out there and even in a loss and proved that he is exactly what he says he is, that he is absolute. Will Hobbs, another young person, a young wrestler who took a loss but looked good. And that was, for me, that was a major theme throughout the show, outside of the fact that these wrestlers needed to overcome the drama, needed to overcome the story, needed to overcome all the fan backlash to the CM Punk decision. The thing that stood out to me was, whether it was Cassidy, Hobbs, Starks, throughout this entire card, the young wrestlers in a loss looked stronger coming out of the pay-per-view than they did going in. And that is a testament to not only themselves, That is a testament to the people they were in the ring with. It is a testament to the people who put the match together. It is a testament to the atmosphere in the arena, where the crowd was able to give that energy to these guys, and they were able to use it and have that fuel them throughout the show. Now, of course, there was also CM Punk. And I think this goes into the whole motivation argument that I was talking about earlier. CM Punk gets fired 24 hours before AEW All Out 2023. It would have been very easy for this pay-per-view to be buried under drama. However, the wrestlers in the ring refused to let that happen. They refused to let it happen, and instead they, to quote EC3, controlled the narrative. And the fact that, at a time where you could argue that AEW was likely entering like the worst built pay-per-view they've ever had, they were entering a situation where they were going to be dealing with a hostile crowd. They were entering all the roadblocks, all of the critiques that people had about this pay-per-view. None of them mattered the second that bell rang. From the first match to the ending, where Orange Cassidy gave Jon Moxley every little bit of energy he had, this pay-per-view delivered. Something that was supposed to be insignificant, something that was supposed to be overlooked, something that we were supposed to be talking about CM Punk the entire night. And the wrestlers in the ring refused to let that happen. And for me, I understand there have been better built pay-per-views. There have been pay-per-views with better and more stories. However, I don't think I've ever witnessed a pay-per-view under the stakes and the circumstances that they were in that night deliver. And I don't think I've ever seen a pay-per-view with this many insanely great matches. Like this card, you could on paper, you're like, oh well, these are a lot of great wrestlers wrestling each other. Will it deliver? Will it not? But buddy, this delivered like it was UPS on one day, like shipping. This was awesome, and it sets the tone now. And this is also why I think it's perfect for AEW. It sets the tone for what's to come next, the post CM Punk era. And I don't think there's cause for concern. Yes, you lost CM Punk, who is inarguably and was inarguably one of your biggest stars. You built the entire show of Collision around him. However, in a time where it was time to rebuild and reclaim AEW, the wrestlers did exactly just that. And I think that from Ricky Starks to Orange Cassidy to Will Hobbs, there's more stories you can tell with all of them. You can make them your stars. Bryan Danielson coming back. He can be the guy, the kingmaker on Collision. There is so much more you can do now than you could before. And again, just like AEW did last year, at a time where everything seemed to be falling apart, it was put back together. And I'll say it for one more time, it is a testament to all of the wrestlers involved in that show. I realize that I'm going to get a lot of flack about this, so let me know about it in the comments section below. My voice is still very much gone from screaming my ass off at All Out last night, as of this recording last night, but that's all I got for you. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released, and if you want to check out one of our awesome videos, another one of our awesome videos I should say, click right here, I think. Yeah, that's where it's going to be. Click right there.